New York is cleaning up one of the dirtiest waterways in the entire country. And not just cleaning it. They are spending $2 billion building giant underground tanks the size of sports arenas and putting thousands of brand new apartments right next door to it. The water in this canal was so bad that scientists once measured 0 oxygen in it. Not low oxygen, 0. Nothing could survive in there. The bottom was covered in a thick layer of black toxic mud that workers called black mayonnaise. The water turned purple. The smell was so strong that people kept their windows shut during summer. And yet, right now, Brooklyn is turning this canal into one of its most exciting new neighborhoods. This is not a small project. This is one of the biggest urban cleanup and rebuild efforts happening anywhere in the United States right now. It involves the federal government, private companies, billions of dollars from regular New Yorkers' water bills, and some seriously wild engineering. If you find stories like this fascinating, do me a favor and hit that like button, because these videos take a huge amount of research and work to put together. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we cover stuff like this all the time. So how did one small canal in Brooklyn end up needing a $2 billion rescue? Let's go back to where this all started. How a canal becomes a nightmare. The Gowanus Canal was not built to be a park. It was not built for fishing or kayaking or Sunday afternoon walks. It was built in the middle of the 1800s as a working industrial waterway, a shortcut that connected the inside of Brooklyn to New York Harbor so ships could carry goods back and forth quickly. At its busiest, 100 ships pass through this canal every single day. 100. Through a channel barely wider than a city block. And wherever ships go, heavy industry follows. By the late 1800s, 22 coal plants were sitting right on the edge of the water. Factories that made gas from coal, which was a common energy source before electricity took over, were dumping their leftover chemicals and thick black liquid directly into the canal. Slaughterhouses were adding blood and animal waste. Metal plants, oil operations, and chemical factories kept piling more and more pollution on top. The canal's design made it even worse. It was only open at one end, so water could not move through and clean itself. Proposals to fix that were considered, but they cost too much money, so nothing was done. The water just sat there and soaked everything up. Then Brooklyn grew. Streets and buildings replaced the marshes and soft ground that used to absorb rainwater. Suddenly, 3 times as much water was rushing into the canal during rainstorms. And the wetlands that used to naturally filter water and keep oxygen flowing through the system were completely gone. By 1909, scientists tested the water and found something that is hard to believe. The canal had 0 oxygen left in it, completely dead water. The color turned reddish purple, which is actually how it got the nickname Lavender Lake, but there was nothing beautiful about it. People describe the surface as covered in oil, the water as gray-green or black, and the smell as something you never forgot. At the very bottom of the canal sat a layer of thick, dark, poisonous sludge that workers later nicknamed black mayonnaise, a mix of coal tar, chemicals, and decades of industrial waste pressed into the mud. And the worst part? The pollution never stopped coming. The 2 problems nobody could fix alone. When engineers finally sat down to figure out how to save this canal, they discovered something that made the whole job much harder. There were actually 2 separate pollution systems running at the same time, and you could not fix one without fixing the other. The first problem was everything already sitting in the canal. More than 100 years of industrial waste soaked into the mud at the bottom and into the soil on the banks. Coal tar, heavy metals, petroleum, chemicals. This stuff does not just wash away, it sinks, binds to particles, and slowly releases poison into the water above it for decades. The second problem was the sewer system. Large parts of Brooklyn, like many older American cities, use what are called combined sewers. This means that rainwater and sewage flow through the same pipes. On a dry day, that is fine. But during a heavy rainstorm, so much water floods into the pipes that the whole system gets overwhelmed. When that happens, the extra water, which is a mix of storm, runoff, and raw sewage, gets pushed out through overflow pipes that drain directly into the canal. Here is why that second problem is such a big deal. If you spend years cleaning all the toxic mud out of the canal, but the sewer overflows keep happening, the newly cleaned sections get dirty all over again. You are basically doing the same work twice while the clock keeps running. That is why the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the federal government's agency for protecting the environment and public health, decided that the cleanup plan had to tackle both problems at the same time: dirty sediment and ongoing sewer pollution, both at once. The agency broke the canal into 3 sections and put together a plan that, when you hear about it, sounds almost unbelievable in scale. Engineering a second chance. Let's start with the mud, because that is where the most visible work is happening. The process of removing material from the bottom of a waterway is called dredging. In a regular harbor, crews dredge to make the water deeper so bigger ships can pass through. Here, they are dredging because the bottom of the canal is essentially a layer cake of toxic waste that has been building up for over a century. About 300,000 cubic yards of contaminated mud are being pulled out of the upper 2 sections of the canal. Another 281,000 cubic yards come out of the lower section. All of that material gets removed, dried out, and either treated or disposed of safely somewhere far from the water. But some of the contamination goes deeper than just the loose mud on top. In parts of the upper and middle canal, the coal tar has soaked into the ground below the canal bed itself. You cannot just scoop that out with a dredging machine. It is too deep and too bound into the earth. So, engineers came up with a smarter approach for those areas. Workers mix a hardening material, similar to cement, directly into the contaminated soil. This locks the coal tar in place and creates a solid 5-foot-thick layer that stops the liquid tar from oozing upward into the water above it. Then, they build a cap on top. And this cap is not just a layer of dirt or concrete. It is a carefully designed system with multiple layers, each one doing something specific. The first layer uses a special kind of clay that pulls contaminants out of the lower soil as water passes through it. The second layer is made of granular activated carbon, which works like a giant version of the filter inside a water pitcher, soaking up dissolved chemicals that try to rise up from the sediment below. Then a layer of sand goes on top to keep those 2 layers in place. Then heavy concrete mats go over everything to protect it from boat traffic and water currents. Finally, clean sand fills in the gaps, creating a new, healthy canal floor where marine life can eventually come back. The upper section of the canal has already gone through most of this process, with the major work finishing up in 2024. The middle section is the next big phase. The lower section comes after that. But all of that work still does not solve the sewer problem. For that, New York had to build something you would not believe exists if you did not see it yourself. The hidden giants under the street. Underneath the streets near the Gowanus Canal, New York City is building 2 underground tanks so large that they sound more like sports venues than water storage facilities. The first tank sits at the very top of the canal and can hold 8 million gallons of water. 8 million gallons. To put that into perspective, that is roughly 12 Olympic swimming pools worth of capacity, buried underground, completely invisible from the street above. Workers finished digging out the space for this tank in March of 2025. During that excavation, crews were hauling away about 65 truckloads of soil every single day just to make room for the structure. After the digging was done, workers moved into building the concrete foundation and inner supports for the tank. And that work was still going when the site was visited. It is expected to be complete by late 2026. The second tank sits near the bend in the canal around 2nd Avenue and holds 4 million gallons. Together, the two tanks can hold 12 million gallons of combined sewage during a heavy storm. When a big rainstorm hits Brooklyn and the sewer system gets overwhelmed, instead of that overflow going straight into the canal, it gets captured and stored in these tanks. Once the storm passes and the treatment plant catches up, the stored water gets properly processed. Here is a nice bonus. Once the tanks are built and the surface is restored, the land directly above them becomes public waterfront open space. 3.5 acres of parks and paths, sitting on top of underground infrastructure quietly doing its job below. These tanks have been a long time coming. As of 2024, the tank projects were running about 6.5 years behind their original schedule. That delay meant sewer overflows kept reaching parts of the canal that had already been cleaned, creating the exact recontamination risk that everyone was trying to avoid. The tanks are expensive. Building them, along with all the surrounding work, costs a combined $1.6 billion. And while you might expect the federal government to pick up most of that tab, the answer is more complicated, and it goes to the heart of why this project is so ambitious. Who is paying for all of this? When the Environmental Protection Agency first put a price tag on cleaning up the Gowanus Canal back in 2013, the estimate was about $560 million. By 2024, that number had climbed to more than $2 billion. That is not a small change. The cost more than tripled in about a decade, and the work is still ongoing. Part of what makes a project like this possible is a federal program that allows the government to go after the companies and organizations responsible for creating the pollution and require them to help pay for the cleanup. At Gowanus, that means big names like National Grid, the energy company connected to the old gas plant operations, Honeywell, which carries liability from earlier industrial activity, the city of New York itself, which spent decades sending sewer overflows into the canal, and several other businesses and organizations connected to the canal's industrial history. In 2020, the Environmental Protection Agency completed a set of enforcement actions worth $175 million, including a $125 million order for major cleaning work in the Upper Canal. In 2024, a new order was issued covering the middle section, with that phase alone estimated at $369 million. The single biggest expense in the whole project is those 2 underground tanks and the work that comes with them. That $1.6 billion price tag is paid through New York City's water system, covered by water and sewer bills that come from users across the entire city. So, in a very real sense, every New Yorker with a water bill is contributing a little bit to the cleanup of the Gowanus Canal. There is one more piece of infrastructure worth knowing about. Back in 2014, New York brought back a flushing tunnel connected to the canal that had been shut down for decades. Getting that tunnel running again cost $177 million. What it does is push tidal water through the canal, improving circulation and slowly raising oxygen levels in the water. It is not a fix on its own, but working alongside the dredging, the caps, and the tanks, it is helping the water gradually come back to life. All of this money, all of this engineering, all of this coordination between agencies and companies is building toward one goal: turning a piece of land that was written off for over 100 years into something that works for the people of Brooklyn. And developers are not waiting for the cleanup to finish before they start building. A new Brooklyn rising around the canal. Here is where the story gets really interesting. The cleanup and the construction are happening at the same time. In 2021, New York City officially rezoned 82 blocks around the Gowanus Canal. That rezoning was expected to create around 8,500 new homes, 6 acres of public open space, and room for schools and businesses, all clustered around a canal that is still in the middle of being cleaned up. Walk through the neighborhood today and it is impossible to miss how much is going up. 2 major development companies are building a portfolio called Gowanus Wharf, which covers about 2.2 million square feet and includes more than 2,200 new homes. One of those buildings, at 175 3rd Street, is a 27-story tower designed by a well-known architecture firm with over 1,000 apartments inside. Another development called Society Brooklyn has already opened with more than 500 units ready to move into. A market research company tracking the area counted 141 new residential projects in Gowanus as of 2025. That level of development naturally raises some real questions. One is about cost. New apartments near the canal have been renting for about 35% more than older buildings in the same area. So, while the neighborhood is getting more housing, a lot of it is on the expensive side. For people who already live nearby and depend on older, more affordable options, that gap is a genuine concern. The other question is about safety. Some of this construction is going up on land that still has contamination underneath it. The clearest example is a planned project called Gowanus Green, about 950 units that were designed to be 100% affordable housing, built on the site of a former gas plant where over a century of industrial activity left behind coal, tar, and toxic groundwater. That project has been delayed because of disagreements about how thoroughly the site needs to be cleaned before building can safely start. This gets at the central challenge of the whole effort. The canal cleanup, the sewer tanks, the land remediation, and the new buildings are all moving at the same time. They all connect to each other. A delay in the tanks means more risk to the canal. A dispute over land cleanup holds up housing. A coordination gap between agencies means the systems that need to work together end up getting in each other's way. That is not a reason to stop. It is just a reminder of how big and complex something like this really is. New York decided a poisoned waterway was worth saving, backed that decision with $2 billion, and started building before the work was even done. Is it a risk? Yes, but the engineering is real. The investment is real, the new buildings are real, and the housing shortage in New York City is as real as anything. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you catch the next video. Turn on notifications if you really want to make sure you never miss one. And I want to hear from you. Would you move into a brand new apartment right next to a canal that is still being cleaned up? Drop your answer in the comments below.